So Washington, Oregon, Pennsylvania, well, welcome. So this session, we're really looking at the idea of how to conduct research. And so I get kind of geeky when it comes to agriculture research. I find it super fascinating. In my own, just a little bit of my own personal background, I've worked a lot, had the chance to do a lot of the literature reviews over the years for different consortiums. And my fascination with agriculture started, 22 years ago. I started as a recruiter, as the IDNR coordinator in Tennessee, and I knew nothing. I speak Spanish, hablo español, but I didn't know anything about agriculture. And they'd say, well, you need to find the agriculture workers. And it was like, what does that mean? Where are they? I didn't know what tobacco was. I didn't know much about the nurseries. And so I really got a chance to learn a lot. And then over time, I started doing more programs servicing side. And so eventually I was over the entire program. But one of the challenges we always had was like, why do people come and go at certain times besides just crops? Like one year we had fields completely full of tomatoes and we were ready to do a summer program and nobody came. And we didn't know why they didn't come until afterwards, that the price of tomatoes had tanked so bad that it wasn't worth it to the farmer to even, sell the tomatoes. And so we always found out retroactively. We always we're trying to figure out where the agriculture is, but we don't know where to the data. And so over the years, I've really spent a lot of time trying to figure out what's the fastest way. A lot of times I go in and help states and I know nothing about the area that I'm going to recruit. So there's certain ways that I can find good information about IDNR, places I should go, farms. And I'm going to try to share some of my favorite ones with you today. Now, I do not know, there's probably many more that I don't know of. So if any of you are using something that I don't mention, please feel free to share that with your peers, as I think that the more that we can share, the better. And so one of your, I feel like with Migrant Ed, you're going to wear a lot of hats, and the recruiter, you're going to feel like, I think it's one of the hardest jobs, also one of the best jobs that you can have, if you're good with change. If not, can be very nerve-wracking. So part of the problem that you're always going to be able to do, you want to have to know how to do it. I've got, in general with recruiting, you need to know how to plan and organize. You need to know how to find and identify families once you're out in the community. You need to know how to make connections. You need to know how to just do general recruitment wherever you go. You need to know how to follow up with those that and you never promise anything more than you can actually deliver, but do you remember what you said you were going to do? You got to make sure you can document your efforts, and you got to be able to provide those beginning services or those beginning referrals. And so you have all these things that you're supposed to do for IDNR. And like it says here, there are key efforts you should be making to ensure you have good ag data for your area. In my mind, it's the foundation for what you do. You may say, well, I work with the school and I really don't go out. You'll never fully know what's happening in your community to a full extent, because not every migrant kid shows up in school. You've got preschoolers, you've got out of school youth. There has to be some outreach that's also done in the community. And the data you have is really key. And so if I say anything that doesn't make sense, feel free to interrupt me, ask questions. So it says here, recruiters should know your areas. You should know when we start thinking about the data that you should be researching, the data should help you know why people are coming and going and what they're doing related to agriculture work. And so you also want to be able to make connections with those places and people that possible eligible families and youth come in contact with. So your research could also spend some time on trying to find partner agencies and figure out who else has resources. I always told all of our recruiters that wherever you go, you're looking for resources and referrals. You pull over, there's a little lady sitting on her porch. You ask her questions by thinking, what might she know? You might say, hey, I'm looking for families that move a lot in the area, that work in agriculture. Do you know of any local farms or somewhere that you think I might need to talk to? And if she says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And you say, okay, well, I'm also looking for resources in the community for, things that exist that might help people that are brand new. She'll say, oh, our church does, we have a food bank. Always looking for resources and referrals wherever you go. So when we start looking at planning and organizing, the data that you start needing to look for, one of my favorite things is having actual maps of agriculture businesses mapped out and have an actual place of where we go. We showed in the last session about H2A, actually having a map of here's the housing locations, here's the thing. I like to have lots of maps that show specifically what's happening. And I actually like to have those maps be up to date. So I'm a huge fan of Google Maps. And so Of course, you don't want to put any, family information out there, but I may have a full listing of farms that I can load into Google Maps. And I can also update my spreadsheet and say, talk to Joe Schmo on this day, and I can update that information. So on that link in my Google Map, I can click on it and know the last time that I visited and what they said. So with your research, if you're saying, I don't even know where to start with that, we're going to look at some places that you can actually start with that. But that Excel spreadsheet of those resources that you have, those places that you should be visiting, is really important. So then once you have those lists, is the list up to date? And do these farms and agribusinesses know of your program? And have you developed a plan to work with them? So in this planning organization phase, I'm thinking, okay, I've got these maps. I know where I'm supposed to go. Now, when I get out there, I need to make sure that these people know that we exist. And I've got a plan on what I'm going to say when I walk up and talk to this farmer. And then have you had conversations with human resources, personnel, or farm owners or managers? You've also got to have in your mind, like, what am I going to say to them? What do I have? What am I going to do? And so we won't address all of that in this presentation, but I believe that Justin has a presentation that we're recording that also talks about interviews and like introducing the program. So this is all part of your planning and organizing thought process that you have. So one of my favorite places to find farms is something called manta.com. And so it literally is just, it looks like this. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat box, and then I'll go ahead and share my screen with you and kind of tell you what I do with Manta. So Manta is a small business directory. Now there's also a bunch of others, like Dun & Bradstreet has one, but Manta's kind of, I find that they're a little bit hard to use this way. Like, okay, let's say that I'm looking for farms. And right now it'll give me a whole bunch of different kinds of farms, but I'm going to say, I'm going to do it in McMinnville, Tennessee. And I press okay. So then it's going to show me right away, it's showing me some farms that just exist right around. And I can actually scroll down to the bottom, and sometimes, and I don't see it right now, sometimes they have all the different categories under farms. So I'm going to put, instead, I'm going to put agriculture. And if you have any questions, make sure to put it in the chat box, and it'll say like agriculture. It's not saying anything. So I'm just going to press okay. So now it says I have 35 of 38 matching agriculture in Tennessee, in this area. So now I'm seeing a lot of these are nurseries and things that I know of. And so like Botanico, which is right here, I can click on this, open it up, and it'll say categorized under nursery stock growers. So they're getting it from tax records. Our records show it was established in 1983, and it was incorporated in Tennessee. Current estimates show the company has a value of 5 to 10 million and employs a staff of approximately 20 to 49. I know this place, they do have that many workers. And so then it'll give me information. Sometimes it'll have their website. Sometimes it'll actually say like who the owner is, and give a little bit more information. But one of my favorite things to do is to just put like agriculture in Tennessee Manta and just search it. And then right now, I now have 1,500 businesses of agriculture in Manta. So there's a way to kind of cheat. Like if you Google that, down towards the bottom, and they keep changing it because they don't like people to scrape their data or get information off of them. Down here, I can see a whole bunch of things for the whole state of Tennessee. It says it's got 49 cotton gins, it's got crop planting, it's got dairy farms, and I can literally open those up, see their lovely ad, and then I can start seeing these ones. And I can, so you're thinking, now what do I do? What I literally do, and what we did for IDRC states, is we went through and typed up and copied and pasted and put every single one into a spreadsheet. And so there's lots of processes we did to get this. But maybe you don't want to do that and you just want to build for your own city. This is a great place to start. And so down here you can see, okay, well, here's all my different subcategories. I can actually just say, I want to take a look at just the Nashville ones. And then I can go down and see, okay, it's telling me it has all of these different ones just for Nashville. So I can go in and get that information and put it in a spreadsheet and start using it. So Manta is one of my favorite ones to go to. Now, a note of caution on Manta. My husband and I have a business where we have a farm. We have about 75 acres. We raise cows. If you find my business listing, I have no official like storefront. It's going to take you to my front door. So sometimes when recruiters get these, they'll say, well, the Manta ones just took me to people's houses. Well, that's where they're based out of, because a lot of times some of these farms, it's just fields. There's not an office. It's just, so make sure if Manta sent you to a cotton farm and it is a yellow house on a road, stop and talk to him and say, hey, I was looking for Bill Smith. I found a listing that says you guys do cotton. And then you'll find that, yeah, they did, but Bill may be in the field somewhere else and their workers at a different place. So don't always expect that it's going to be an official, it may be a place that has, 4 workers and it's, their office is out of the house. And so that is something that, so Manta again kind of hides it. The easiest way is to Google agriculture in your state. Someone give me a state. Let me look at give me a state real quick in the chat box. Let's see who gets their state in there first. Kentucky. Okay, so we're just going to try it. Agriculture in Kentucky. If I can spell Kentucky, KY, right? Right now it says there's 13,901. Now give me a city. So you go down to the bottom, you see all the different ones that are available, and then you can browse by the closest city if you want, or you can look in the, so we'll look at Bowling Green, there are 331. And so you'll see that there's, thousands of guys bowling green. Now it'll also have landscape, it'll also have tree things, and then sometimes it may also have veterinary things, but you can also go down here and say, all right, now I'm looking at Bowling Green's categories. It has 9 dairy farms. So I can open up and see specifically, here are those particular dairy farms. And so go ahead and check that out. Try it for your state. Same thing, you can do it for New Jersey. You can do it for any state. But remember, the easiest way is not through their little search thing. It is, so now it says 15,000 businesses for agriculture in New Jersey. And you can kind of see that. And so check that out for just a second. Can you guys hear the noise in the background or no? If you can, let me know. I may need to tell them to keep that down. So let me know in the chat box if it's too loud. So here's all the different areas you can look for the different towns in New Jersey. They give you a lot more options down here for these different cities in New Jersey to be able to see things. Okay, so that's the first. Everyone needs to know how to use Manta and to be able to really kind of play with that. It's a great place to start. Then there is, we really want you to be able to reach out to your own Department of Agriculture. So give me another state. So see who's in the chat box the quickest. First one in this, another state. Let me know you guys are there. Not seeing anybody's. Give me one. Okay, we've got Nebraska. So let me stop sharing this and let me show you. I mean, one of your biggest sources for information, of course, is just Googling. So we want to look at the Agriculture Department of Education. No. The Department of Agriculture, Nebraska. So a lot of times each one's a little bit different. And so you'll go in and you'll look and see. Right now I'm trying to look for any sort of ag promotion. Sometimes they'll have specific farmers markets or specific programs that they have. You want to look around and see what's going on, see what's happening. Right now I'm not seeing any listing of farm. Like Tennessee has a big thing where that's Tennessee grown, and you can go in and find. So you want to look around and see. You can contact them and see if they have any sort of farm listings that are available. Right now I'm not seeing anything really good right here from Nebraska, but let me show you my Tennessee Department of Agriculture. So you want to just Google yours and check out and see what you have. So some of them, or they have something called Pick Tennessee products, and they may have something like this for your state, and it'll actually give you a list of where to find them. Here's the farmers find products. You can go in and say, I want to find all the places that sell fruit. And then it'll go in and tell me, here's all the places that sell fruit in my particular state. And so you want to just check out what yours looks like. Everyone may be a little bit different. But right here, it's got information about these places, and it has everything that I might need to know about this particular location. So that's my really make sure, I feel like it's not fair. Some have really good ones and some have really bad ones, but you want to make sure that you know what is currently happening in your state with that. Then how many of you, if you want to use a chat box, have ever talked with your extension agent? Let me know if you've ever reached out to your local county extension agent. Put it in the chat box, yes or no. Let me see if I can see. Yes, okay, Blanca's work with them. Yes, yes, okay. And if you're thinking, no, I've never done this, look, you're all yeses. So this is just a good link right here. It looks like everyone's reached out to them. How have you used them? What have you done particularly with them? Have you guys access, maybe put it in the chat or unmute yourself? What have you found really helpful about agriculture extension? If anyone wants to share some thoughts, I can pay attention to the chat if you want to put it in there. One of my favorite ways is to figure out what they're offering, because like I mentioned, we have a farm for dairy producers and for beef producers. They're usually certification classes that you have to take. And so they bring farmers in for all different kinds of things. And so we used to set up a table in their trainings so that farmers would come in, they'd get familiar with us. We could explain what we're doing in a very comfortable environment. So these guys do a lot of training with different agriculture entities. And so the other thing is they also are the ones that do monthly reports on how crops are progressing. And so usually most states, this exists pretty much in all states, they do crop reports that go up to the Department of Agriculture. And you can ask to be on their listserv so that whenever, sometimes they'll say it looks like the harvesting of pecans is 3 weeks behind. So you know, okay, then the workers are going to be 3 weeks later. And so you can be part of those. So I think really leveraging their knowledge that they have about the area. Sometimes they'll actually give you listings. I've only been able to do that a couple times. Most of the time they're like, well, we kind of protect that. But what I have been able to do is say, well, I heard there was a pig farm on the southern part of the county. Do you have any suggestions of what areas I should go? And they'll say, oh, go to Red Road. And so they know the area, they know what's going on, they know what's happening in agriculture. They're doing the trainings. Whenever there's new farm census, whenever there's any new programs or training about pesticides, these are the ones that give that training. So this resource right here just gives you the search that you can just reach out. We used to ask yearly that they would fill out a survey of whether they had seen more workers coming and going, or whether they'd seen any changes in agriculture, and the extension agents would usually fill that out and let us know. So you can leverage it a lot of different ways, but one of the things you want to know who they are, and you want to, another thing, somebody put in resources. They also have things like 4-H, they've got classes and resources. So you want to know what it is that they're offering, and then be able to know what it is that, how they're working with the farming community to really be able to help you that way. So I'm so afraid you can hear that noise. They're doing some construction outside and I can hear it very loud. So here is this here. An example here, like what I just mentioned, whenever, make sure, they may have COVID resources that they're offering. Just be really familiar with what they do, and then make sure that they know what you're doing, and you figure out how you can work together. So that's another part you want to really research and be aware, and then think if there's any knowledge that they have that you can leverage that might be helpful. I'm a huge believer in the Ag Census. Who has used the Ag Census before? Anyone use the Ag Census? Yes, no?
In Illinois, Jessica, we've used the Ag Census information from 2017 that you compiled for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we go back to that a lot, just to at this point as a reminder of what areas we can check and what types of ag, either businesses or ag products are, since it's split by county. That's been really helpful.
Yes.
It allows us to use that in conjunction with the Google Maps, for example. And so it kind of gives us that comparison of what we're seeing on a Google map versus what that Ag Census is showing should be found in a particular county.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. So for those of you that haven't used it, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on it. And there are some new resources. Maria, you might like some of these, and you might have already seen them. But I'll put these in here, just going from the idea that for some of you, this is probably completely new. So the Ag Census comes out every 5 years. there's not always huge monster change between, year to year to year. And so sometimes people may say, well, this was 2017. In most of your communities, there is not drastic change in 5 years in agriculture. There is a small, there's increases or decreases, but the core agriculture is going to be there. And so the ag census is through the Department of Agriculture, and they actually survey farms. And they send out a very comprehensive survey, everything from, how many cows do you have and how many of them are female and male and how old and how many, their weight, and just a huge amount of information that farmers fill out. It's completely anonymous. So if I fill it out for our stuff that we have, it's not going to come back with my name anywhere, but they do a compilation of that. And so the National Agriculture Statistics has a lot of resources related to the agriculture census. And so they have some atlas maps down here. Like if you click on these, you can actually see different types of crops. Like I want to see how many milk cows, what it looks like nationally. You can see where dairies are across the countries. So you can become a little bit more, let's say you're a dairy state and you want to know who else has dairy, and maybe you want to reach out to another recruiter in another area to find out how they're doing things. These kind of maps are like national type maps that you can see, here's the cotton, here's the tobacco, and you can see where things are grown in our country. So they do a lot of different tools from it. They also have these, what they call these web maps. And these web maps specifically look at crops, look at economics, they look at farms. And so you can actually go in and look at these maps and decide what you want to see. Maybe I want to see vegetables and melons harvest by acres. And it will then show me, different things. And then I can actually click up here and it'll show me the area. And it'll then show me what is in that particular area, what's going on. I can scroll down and see, what kind of crops are in that particular area. But I'm going to share with you one of my favorite ones. You can look specifically by state or county. And so let me go ahead and put this in the chat box. And I am going to ask for a state here in just a little bit. So be ready, because we might do yours. They break these down. They have these massive census of, information, these huge reports. But then they also have started doing these really good county profiles. So somebody give me a state. Let's see who's the fastest typer here. Give me a state. Illinois. Okay. So if we go into Illinois, you can also, it'll start giving you information. It can say, hey, you can take a look at the census with just the state and the county. What I think is the easiest for us to use is when you look at the state and county profiles. So it'll show your state, and then it'll have all the different counties, so that are in the state. So Maria, give me a county that you would like us to look at.
Let's look at McHenry.
Okay, so we click on McHenry. Now, every single country, county in the entire country has one of these things. And so what it has specifically is the breakdown of what's happening. First thing it'll do, and I'm just going to tell you how I read these, just so that you know kind of what to think about. I think these are a great help. Let's say you have 5 or 6 different counties and you're trying to prioritize where you should spend more of your time or what you should be looking at. Because Maria mentioned that you have maps and then you kind of compare the data to see, if it's matching up. So the first thing it says there are a total of 881 farms. It's down 3% by 2012. The land and farms is also down by 11%, and the average size of the farm is down. So Illinois in this particular county is seeing a decrease from 2012 to 2017. The next census will be next year, and so then you'll be able to look and see. Then below it, so you can see that several things were down. The value of what they got was down. The payments from the government was down. The farm-related income was down. The total production expenses was down, and the net farm cash income was way down. So whenever you see these downs, there's going to be a decrease. People do not stay in agriculture for a long time if they continue to lose and lose and lose. So these are kind of, and Maria may be able to actually look at a whole nother county and it'll all be positives. But this is something you put in your mind, like, I wonder what's happening in this particular area that's making this change. But then you see, okay, per farm, the market value was down, government payments were up, farm-related income was up just a tiny bit, but the overall net cash farm income was down. So you may think, okay, well, what does this mean? So a few other things you're thinking about. I like to look at the total number of large farms, because large farms usually depending on what the crop is. Sometimes it's completely mechanized, but just to know, a lot of times there's more chance, larger farms, there can be more workers. But this number over here is, I find, is really important. So when you make as a farm less than 100,000, you don't have a lot of room to hire a lot of workers. This is a lot of times just family establishments with one or two maybe, but you're not going to see a bunch of workers coming and going. But once you start getting more than this, you see there are 212 farms in this particular county that make over 100,000 or more. So that's a pretty good amount of land. And then over here it says 91% is cropland, 2% pasture, 2% wood. It just gives you an idea. And then there are 9,000 acres that are irrigated. So irrigation usually requires some work for people to be doing that irrigation. You're just putting it in the mine. Second page, I think, helps clarify a lot of things. Then it gives you these ranks. So the first thing I do is scroll down and look for ones. So this particular county is number 1 in the state for Christmas trees, short rotation, woody crops. So if this is my area, I want to know, where are those Christmas trees at? Who is that? It says there are 52 other counties in the state producing it, and this is number 1. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I've got tree farms. Usually tree farms bring in workers. Then I'm going to look, they are number 3 in fruits, tree nuts, and berries. Again, this is another, tree nuts and berries usually require workers. This is another area. You're number 4 in vegetables, melons, potatoes, sweet potatoes. You can see that. And then I'm scrolling down and seeing I'm number 2 in sheep, goats, wool, mohair, and other animals. So this is going to be this county, Maria, let me see if this matches up. Is this one of your counties with, more higher numbers, one of your larger counties?
No, I actually had you choose it because it's one of the counties that we currently haven't explored as much as we need to. So this has become really helpful.
This would be a county that I would definitely have my radar on. So now it also says it's number 47 in the state. So for example, if you guys are a small Christmas tree state and you don't have like huge productions, you could later come back and be like, yeah, we have Christmas tree farms, but it's only 4 or 5. So you always want to put it in context. Now, one of the things I like to do is literally print these for each county and rank them. I put them in order. Like number 1 county is going to be the biggest chance. But this one has enough going on that you've got enough of the melons, you've got enough of sales, enough, that this nursery and greenhouse is still pretty good. This is definitely one that I would want to be looking at. But then you also have the top crop is still corn, soy. So these are not, these trees are not, being more than these over here on the side. So it's going to be smaller. So, but definitely this would be an area that you want to look in to figure out, okay, where are these nurseries? Where are these crops? What does it look like in size? And so you can actually use that report that we provided. Let me show you guys what we have here on IDRC. We actually went through and with the actual ag census, you go over here and it says ag census information for Illinois. Let's just open this up. We made these reports. Once it opens up, I'll share it. Sometimes my computer wants to sound like it's an airplane, so hopefully it does not do that right now. There it goes, it's starting. So here's an example of the spreadsheet that we had. You can get a ton of information from the ag census. So what was that, McHenry? What was the name of that one?
McHenry.
Okay, so it's pretty high for irrigation, but we can actually scroll over and look and say they got 175 cattle farms. They've got 17,000 cows. You've got 32 milk farms with 2,725 cows. So that's not very many cows. A lot of small dairies. You've got 33 pig farms with 13,000 pigs. That is a good amount of pigs. So not huge, but you've got 54 sheep and lambs farms with 77, almost 800 sheep. So I can actually go through here and look. There are 13 broiler farms with only 445. That's not too big. But then there's this whole section on the number of farm workers. So the number, there are 257 farms that say they hired 1,600 workers. When you look across at these other counties, this one's pretty high. And then you look at the number of them that have had farms workers there for a short amount of time. You've got 981. So this is definitely an area, if I am you, I'm wanting to check it out. There are 1,600 acres of vegetables. That's a good amount of, enough to definitely 207 acre land in orchards, acres in orchards, and 232 other types of farms that might be hay or something like that. So this is what I'm thinking as I'm going back through. But for those of you that are like, I don't have that report, let me show you another tool. This is new. And Maria, you'll like this one. You scroll down farther on this same page. Oh, I'm not sharing. Hold on. And my computer wants to blast off. I need to close a couple things. Close this. If you look over here, make sure I'm sharing it, the right thing. Yes. There is something called the Ag Census Query Tool. This is a new tool. Let me go ahead and put this in the chat box because you can play around it for your own state. So go ahead and put here. So what this is I just showed you that spreadsheet. They actually put those things into a way that you can search it. So someone else give me a county and a state at the same time if you can. And I'll just do the first one. Somebody else in the chat box. See what I get. Or else I'll do Maria still. Let me know you're there. Okay, so Kansas, Finney, Kansas. Okay, so what you can do here is you click on this first thing and you want to say, I want to see, we don't want to look at the whole US, we want to look at state, county data. And then it says, what table do you want to look at? Do you want to look at the highlights? Do you want to look at the hired farm labor? This is my favorite one. But then you also have all of these other things. Like I can look at field crops. I can look at land use for vegetables for sale. I can look at any of those other areas that we were just looking at, and it will let me search and find the information. So I'm going to go to my favorite one, which is the number of hired farm workers. So click on this. Then I go pick my state. So I'm going to go to Kansas, and then I go choose my county, and usually it'll populate it. Or maybe I just have to not let me do it. Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay. So you click down and you see Finney. And then I'm going to put update grid. So now it's giving me this information about this particular county. So if you want to really break it down to the core, it is telling you the number of possible farm workers. The farm worker number is always going to be higher. These are only reported numbers, and farmers have no reason to over-report. They usually under-report. And so it says then it breaks down. It says how many operations said they hired workers. How many farms? There were 192 in Finney, Kansas that said they hired. Then it says how many of them hired only one worker? 57. How many of them hired two workers? And then my favorite one, 10 or more, there were 12 places that said they hired two or more. But you can see all of these different places are saying, hey, we had, there are 36 that said we had 5 to 9 workers. Then below it'll say, okay, how many of them, total numbers of workers. So of the places that said they only hired one worker, there were a total of 57. There were total number that said they hired 2 workers. So there's a total of 76. And so you can see, but you're seeing down, and then it looks at the labor expenses. And then it also tells you how many workers were hired for more than 150 days, more or less. And then there's something called migrant workers. Migrant is based on their perception of what a migrant worker is, but there's at least 4, according to them. And so you can kind of see. So what I like to do is if I have multiple counties, we can look and see this total number of workers. They're saying there's 890. I can change my counties and see 890 total. I can look down here and see this one says 212. So I can then kind of rank my counties by priority. Of course, if there's going to be more numbers of workers, so like Maria, you could go through and look at each one of your areas and literally rank them by the total number of workers from this. And so you can also export any of your data, and you can also view it in a PDF. So I think it's a really cool tool. Maybe you want to take it instead and see, hey, I want to see how many cattle and calves. And again, it'll just change and it'll give you the information to say, okay, in this particular county, there are 23,000 cows. And so you can also say, well, I wonder if there's any, if there's milk goats or vegetables and melons harvested for sale. So you can just see, and they're saying, no, not much going on in that particular area, but it'll give you the acreage, it'll give you that information, and you can just query it and learn that. Any questions on this?
Jessica, is that working with the results of that last census?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we used to do those spreadsheets because this didn't exist. Well, now you can just search it, export it, get the information, and make the comparisons. So yeah.
Yeah, this is great.
It's very cool. It's so my suggestions, if you're a brand new recruiter, is the things that you're looking at is like the number of acres of a certain crop. Like you start to learn, like orchards usually require a bunch of people. Sometimes corn, like corn in Illinois, is very different than corn in Tennessee. So Maria may have workers that are doing detasseling. I never have that. It's just field corn, and corn doesn't mean no good. I can never find workers for that. So you'll get to know your crops and get to know, and this is a really good tool that you can kind of play around and see. So one of our favorites. So moving on, I gotta pay attention to when I'm supposed to be done too. Okay, so make sure I'm sharing my slides. I think I'm starting from the beginning. So that's the ag census. Let's see from current slide. So again, really pay attention to those, play around with that. I think it'll be really helpful. Farmers.gov is another resource that just you can be aware of the kind of resources that they have. This one sometimes has really good information. Sometimes I don't find anything, but I like to make sure that people are familiar with this because they have a lot of resources that are for farmers. And you can kind of pay attention with the idea that I might mention this to an ag extension officer to say, hey, how are you guys managing this program? I saw that USDA is offering it. And so it might give you a way to just kind of be aware to be able to ask some of those people that are working with farmers. Seasonal jobs is of course, the tool that we all get H2A orders from. It's where it originally comes. And then we use like Spotlight that will then kind of show those, but this is where they'll show those top agriculture jobs. We already mentioned in the last session the tools that we have with H2A and H2B listings and maps. There's also something called Contractados, and we'll go ahead and open that. So this is, I'll go ahead and put it in. Some of you might have heard it. This is just another tool that's out there that you can kind of check out. They haven't been around that long, and sometimes they have really good information and sometimes they don't. This is something that you can share with farm workers. They have a lot of different resources, like to know know your rights kind of things. They have it in both English and Spanish, so you can go ahead and check those out. But they also have ways that you can try to find work. And so people can go in and find the work that's in their particular area. And so you can, choose your state. Maybe it's, let me look at one of the states that somebody else, let's look up New Jersey. You can go in here and see if, I don't even see New Jersey in here. Let's see. And they may not have, yeah, there it is. You can go ahead and see what they have for farms, specifically for the 306 different types of farms in this area. So it may be some that are not eligible, it may be, but these guys usually are doing different things that are, for workers. And so this might be something you can say, I only want to see agriculture. And then you can go ahead and see that this is what it's saying that it has, and you can click on there and it'll give you information for that particular thing. And it'll give you, a lot of times they do it for families themselves so that they can know when a notice has been published of particular work. And so this may be something, if you have families that you run into that are looking for work, this is a good website that they can kind of check out. Let me go on, make sure I can share my screen back to where I was. So then there is, hemp is something that for a lot of you is brand new. A lot of us are still trying to figure out hemp. And so the Hemp Industry Daily has some really interesting information that might be helpful to you. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the chat box so you can check it out, bookmark it if it's helpful to you. I'm a believer that we should try to continue to stay super informed of different things that are happening. The cool thing about this one is it lets you do by region. So I can actually go in and say, all right, I want to see what's happening in Illinois. And then it'll give me the things that are specifically about what's happening in right here. So it says Hydro Farm, this is from October, spends $58 million on a greenhouse tech acquisition. Now, please don't quote and say, Jessica said that marijuana qualifies. I'm just hemp is what we're looking for here. So that does qualify for us, but so you can just kind of read what's going on with these and keep informed. So that is another resource that exists. That we also have the learning portal. We have a lot of agriculture websites that are helpful. So the one that specifically says listing of helpful agriculture and housing, these are some of our absolute favorite ones. And so we'll go through a lot of these right now. But like Manta's on there. There's farm subsidy database. The county profile direct link is on there. Farm labor. There's a listing of farm labor contractors. These are all very helpful things that you guys can check out and can see and can use as you need to. And so these are specific things that you can see. So let's go there real quick. I want to show you a few. And I know, Maria, you guys have used a bunch of these over the years. But if you're brand new and you're thinking, okay, what is this? Go to the learning portal and then go click on agriculture resources for recruiters. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat box. And so this first one, like we already mentioned, so Department of Labor, if you click on this, it opens up hopefully. Department of Labor actually has a listing of all of the farm contractors. So this is kind of a Western US thing. Like a lot of the East Coast doesn't have a lot of labor contractors, but if you scroll down, you can actually get a listing of an XLS listing of all of the labor contractors in the country. And then you can filter out particularly for your area. Labor contractors, if you're brand new and you're not sure what they do, a lot of times they bring in crews to work. I've seen it a lot in Arizona and New Mexico, Colorado. The farmers will not even deal with workers. They'll just deal with the labor contractor, and the labor contractor is the one that is specifically hiring workers. And so right here you can see that it gives me the name of the person. It tells me where they live. It gives me their state. And so I can just go in and just go ahead and put a filter in and just say, I only really want to see the ones that are in California. And so I click on that. And so it'll have just the California ones. And so we encourage recruiters to reach out to the labor contractors, explain what you're doing, and see if they'll give you permission to talk to their workers. And so this list is updated periodically. And you can go ahead and use it, access it whenever you want. But sometimes it's hard to remember where it is. And so we go ahead and put that right there. There's also something called the Farm Subsidy website. This is a really interesting website. They keep track of the government money that's paid out to farms for different reasons. And so if you go here right to the beginning, it'll usually, and they change it all the time. Maybe I need to go back to where it was instead. You can go in and see, this is new. You can look by your current zip code. I think that's why we included, of who has gotten money lately. And it'll give you information of when they, different places that actually have it. So Simpson Nurseries, I know this guy, you can open it up and see when he's gotten money. The last time he got a lot of money was 116, but the thing is you can use Manta to also search for Simpson Nurseries and then find their address. And so you can kind of see they go back and forth the way this works. So that's what that database is. We also have, let's see, make sure. This is the main ones we've gone through so far. There is a meat, poultry, and egg inspection list. So these guys are the ones that go in and inspect all the agribusinesses. And so you can actually go in here and see their database, and you can actually pull it down so that you can download the files. You can actually download it by establishment name, and it'll give you an Excel sheet. And then you can also play around with their map also. But I usually click on here by this was just updated November 29th, and it will have all of the different places that are inspected specifically by the USDA as agriculture entities. Not all will qualify. Some may be sausage makers and they don't have any, of the initial commercial sale type of work for agriculture, but a lot of them will. A lot of them will be poultry, eggs, things that directly qualify. And so you can pull that list down and then sort out your particular area. So any questions, make sure to for sure let me know if you have any on there. Okay, moving on. We're going to go back to talk a little bit more of another area that I think is helpful. And so let me open this. We've already covered these. Another area to really think about is, we've talked a little bit about the farms and how you can get that information, about the data that you can find. What about specifically housing? So do you know where your families are coming and going? If you're in an urban area, do you know how to kind of figure out which places might possibly be the best place for you to try to recruit? And so it says here, do you need to reach out to more urban areas and talk to housing managers to identify new places? You want to be looking for places that families can come when they first are new to the area. And this took me a while with recruiting to be able to figure out how to ask the right questions, because of course there's housing everywhere. So I learned to start asking, where are the places when someone is brand new to the community, where are the places that offer maybe monthly rentals or no lease requirement rentals that people can come and use as transitional housing? And so if you call an apartment complex and say, hey, I'm looking for places that new families often come to, and they'll say, no, my tenants have been here forever. Often they know of the other places. So you can say, well, do you know anywhere in town that rents to people monthly, or where people might be coming and going? And a lot of times they'll give you an actual name, but there's some other ways that you can do this too. So we believe that you should thoroughly canvass the housing in your area. And we also believe that if you just are in school and you don't go out, you will miss a good amount of kids. At the job site, same thing. Sometimes they won't let you talk to anybody, and you have to get permission. And so you might not be able to get permission, so you'll miss them. So Maria has a comment that says, one thing to note with the labor contractors is that the location indicated on the website is related to where they may reside. It's possible they will move crews to work in other states. That is exactly true. So maybe you hear of a labor contractor named Juan Garcia. You can always go back to the list and see if maybe he's out of Indiana instead of Illinois for Maria, and she can look him up. Very good comment there. So we're just big proponents that make sure that you're also in places that we call transitional housing. So these are temporary places where migrant families live when they come into a community, places that rent by week or by month, places that other families live and they can stay with them for a short time. Sometimes it's maybe just random housing throughout your community that is low cost and available during the season. A lot of times it's not in the best shape. A lot of times the owners are not super responsive to renters' needs. So recruiters need to be very, very comfortable going all different places. And then also be safe, be careful, because sometimes these are not, always the best of communities to be wandering around. And so we believe the MEP program should know all of their mobile home parks. Like for me in Tennessee, that was something that was really helpful. And a little bit ago, we found a national mobile home park directory. And so we were super excited about this. But if you click on this, on the link here, I'll go ahead and put this in the chat box. And then I'll show you a different tool that's available for this. So this is, the reason this exists is in case of national emergencies, they want to know where all mobile home parks are across the country. So you literally can see this, you can download this again, you can get information on this, and you can sort out and have your own mobile home parks, listed in here. But there also are a few other tools. So this particular tool, let's see if I can open it up. I'll put this in here, is a search directory of that one that I just shared with you. So let me make sure it's sharing the right screen. This is mobile home park. It's a search directory of it. So I can put where I live. I can put city, state, or zip. So I'm just going to put where I live. And then I can put search in it. And it'll say, do you want to fine tune? Do you want a pet friendly? No, I don't want that. I want the one that doesn't have, I don't want it to have a pool. I don't want it to have, but it'll go ahead and do a search. My computer's got too much stuff open. And then it will give me information as soon as it actually runs. So you can go ahead and do it in your area and it'll give me the listing. Here we go. Must select from the return list. Okay, search. So right here are the actual mobile home parks that are in my area. Several of these were places I used to recruit at all the time when I was a recruiter in this area, like this Lowry Lane Trailer Park. It'll just give me the information, the address, just gives me the name. And so it'll show for my particular area, these, these places that exist. So feel free to check that out. In addition, let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing. see. Another thing, forrent.com. So forrent.com is, if you click on it, it looks exactly the same as I just shared, but we'll play around with it. Somebody give me a city and a state. First one in, let's see. Anybody there? Asheville, North, okay. So we'll put that in. Okay, now what I like to do is look at the rent range and look at the cheapest rent. So I'll start with the cheapest and then I'll just search it. And so then it'll give me the places that have the cheapest. Now you can see that there's, you know, some of these are way high. You can kind of play around and see, depending on the price. I didn't give them an end. So I'm going to say, I want it to be 500 to, no, I'm just going to say 700. So then it'll give me the places that are the cheaper areas for someone to be able to rent. And so sometimes these are good places to start. You can see right here, this one has 2 beds and it's only $625. This is also a super helpful resource if you have families that are looking for another place and you want to give them and say, hey, you can search here. And so you can see there's not a lot of places that are cheap right there in this particular area. Let's look at Warren, New Jersey. So right now we see, okay, and it'll give you the, you know, a few places that'll show up right there. And so these are good to just check out and see. You can always make the range, you know your families and you know about what people are paying. You can see if you add it up, what's the difference and what exists and kind of see what's particularly on there. So we just, there's a lot of resources, a lot of existing tools that exist to find housing, and you can use it to your advantage to see. There also is another tool, and this will make my computer be super slow because it's a slow loading thing. Let me go ahead and share this. This is a national HUD resource locator. And so what this does is, this is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. They have a lot of different things for where they can help with families have cheaper rent. They also are the ones that do the USDA farm. And so you can actually look where you are and then load in a map, and it'll slowly load all their stuff in. And it'll give you everything for homeless resources to elderly housing to farm housing. And you can, public housing. So it may be everything from projects all the way to, like, each icon's a little bit different. USDA rural housing. So this is a Department of Agriculture rural housing resource. So they give you all of these different housing things that are available specifically right there that you can kind of see. So we feel like this is a helpful resource. You can kind of see what, if it just lets you see what's available. It may not be helpful. It may be just, maybe projects type of apartments, and this, none of your migrant families are living in any of this due to their circumstances or something like that. But it does exist in case you find that helpful. So here's another, slide that just shows that. So a couple other things to think about with housing that, make a list of past migrant housing. We used to always pull from MLS 2000 a report where we would look at the last 5 to 10 years housing locations we had and create a report that would show us those housing locations. We kept it. We made sure there was no personal information of any families. But if our recruiters are out in an area and they're wondering what to do, they can always check past previous years' housing areas to see if any other families have come in. So we usually kept a Google map with, it didn't have anybody's information. It just had stars of all the places we'd had families in the past, and we would periodically check it. So that was a way that we found was, helpful for part of the time, especially nights and weekends when families are home. It was a good thing to do. We already mentioned all the H2A stuff that we, and then one of the ones here, never forget the power of Google. So Google apartments, Google farms, Google hemp farms, and then usually there'll be some information that comes right up right there for you. So we want to make sure that you have access to that, and then you're really harnessing that. Another thing is use your school mobility data. So one of the things that I like to do is when I talk to the federal programs director for the schools that I was working with, I would always ask them, which schools in your area have the highest mobility? So if I've got a Canvas housing, if a particular school has a lot of people coming and going, the chances, there's zones, there's school zones, the chances to find people that are moving more would be in those zones. So I would focus on the housing for that zone first. And so a lot of times the school districts know exactly which ones. They'll say, oh, that's a school that we have most mobility. So ask that, which school it is. And then you can also ask for the bounds of their particular district, their particular area. And then you can check out the housing related to that. It says, here, thank goodness for the internet. Effective recruitment does not just mean that you drive around, you look and you ask, although it should be part of it. But you should be driving around looking and asking while you're already on your way to do other things. Like, where the farms are, where the housing location are, and you're asking people as you go along. Sometimes we make the mistake of going directly to a place and we never look, we listen to our music, we're talking to somebody, we're not paying anything in attention. And a good recruiter knows to look for signs throughout, wherever you drive. Years ago, when I started, we used to have the little tiny satellites for people's, their cable. And it had one prong on the little satellite if it was English speaking and two prongs if it was Spanish speaking. And at the time we had a lot of families that spoke Spanish that came in. And so I would drive along, and as I was driving, I would also pay attention to the two prong, the little cable service thing. And so I'd stop whenever I'd find it and talk to people and see if I could find. That doesn't work anymore. So we always have to be modifying what we're doing and seeing if there's any way that we can know our community pretty good. It says now is the perfect time to get to know all of your areas, and especially during COVID, where everyone's not always able to get out all the time. Make sure you do your research so that when you're really slammed and you don't have the time, that you already have that done. So I already showed you the farm database there with that. I've also showed you the USDA. We went through the other direction on all those agribusiness plants. And here's an example of what it looks like when they, when it comes down, and then you can make an actual map specifically for that. And here's another little slide that shows you, and I already showed you the labor contractors. Okay, so I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to stop recording,